there. For this week's Project Life layout, or I should say probably last week's Project Life layout, this will be the first week of April, I have a sketch that uses the 7 photos, and they're 3 inches wide by 2 inches high, or vice versa if you want to do a portrait orientation. You could arrange these a lot of different ways to get still a block grouping of 7 photos, moving the groups around a little bit. I'm actually going to change my sketch a little bit, and I'm only going to use 5 of the photos. When I started pulling my photos, I realized that I had 2 for the week that really are going to end up on their own pages and with some other things. So I just did the 5 that I had left, and I think that's fine with Project Life. If you're already going to cover an event some other way, then why put it in your Project Life outline? You may want to, but if you don't want to, that's perfectly fine. Now I could approach this a couple of ways. I could take this extra block out and just make this whole section smaller with the background papers, or I can substitute something here. And I've decided to put my journaling here instead of down below the photos, and that'll give me a little bit more room for my title. The other thing is, when I was looking at my photos and trying to think about what embellishments I might use, I really felt like I needed to soften this. There are a lot of lines here with the stitching lines and everything, and these are washi tape. I really loved the sketch, but I didn't love it with these photos so much, so I'm going to go ahead and adapt this, and I may use it later on more like it is now. So I'm going to leave things pretty much in the general space that they're in, but where I have a lot of these lines, I'm going to soften this with some stamps. So I'm looking at some leaf design stamps, and this one is from American Crafts. It's more of an open leaf design. This is from Stamping Up. I've got another Stamping Up one here that's a possibility. So I'll decide about those, but I'll be doing some stamping on my background paper, which is a piece of paper from Stamping Up. This is Bashful Blue cardstock. If you're a Stamping Up user, they are making some color changes, and this is one of the colors that will be retiring come the end of May. Now, for my papers, I have Pebbles Family Ties collection. I have a lot of choices here in papers that all go really well with the photo. And this one is from Lawn Fawn. I'm also looking, because the photos have a little bit of pink and red in them, I pulled out a couple of other things that I'm considering. And I'll be doing that first here in a few moments of deciding which of these that I want to use. And then I have some lettering options. If I go with washi tape on the bottom, I've got several washi tapes I can pull from. So that's where I am right now, and let me get the photos set up here, and then we'll decide for sure which paper to use.
I am always misplacing my sketch, so I wanted to show you what I did with my sketch. I used an old badge holder from a company that I worked with for a long time, and I've attached it to what supports my camera, so it's always in front of me on my table now. It's a little bit of Southern engineering there. Anyway, back to the layout. My husband is wearing this red shirt, and I have some pink in the photo, so I considered using this red, or this plaid paper that has a rosy red color in it, as well as the yellows and blues and greens. And you'll notice how much the red comes out when you have the paper on, or the pictures on that paper. And then I went back to my Pebbles papers that have the blues and the greens, and that's really more what I wanted to emphasize. I've done so much red over the winter that I really wanted a lighter kind of look. So I decided to work with the Pebbles papers, and I'm just spending some time here deciding the order of things. There's that Lawn Fawn green paper that makes a good border. And my blue background, I'm seeing how everything lays out on that. I will be needing some washi tapes, so I'm kind of considering what I would be using for washi tapes. And I'd like to do something besides the blue and green, so I'd like to put a little yellow in there. And I have this one paper that's from Pebbles that has a little bit of yellow in it, the plaid, so that's a possibility. And there's also a yellow paper with the Pebbles collection. And I think there's one more blue and green here that I haven't tried out. No, it's just too much like the other papers. Doesn't give me enough contrast. So I definitely want the one with the leaves. and it's just deciding on the order of things. Went back to the plaid one more time, but I end up going with the leaves and the yellow paper and the green paper. So here's my arrangement, and I glued these layers together, but I haven't put them on the background because I want to do my stamping. You recall from the sketch there were way too many lines for me. I didn't feel like it was soft enough, so I wanted to add some stamping. I decided on the set from American Crafts, a Garden District set, and that open leaf design. I did some sampling on some blue cardstock that I had. You could work behind where your photos were going to be, and I tested it with markers first. That was what I thought I would be using. However, I didn't really have a light enough color marker, so I tried something else. I'm going to show you in a moment what I did, because this is how I've decided to use them. The only real question is, do I want the green leaves or the blue leaves? The blue gives me a tone-on-tone effect, but I'm a pretty literal person, so I kind of like the idea of using the green leaves. The paper has these blue circles in it like flowers, so I went searching through my stamps to try to find something that had that blue circle kind of design, and I didn't have anything with the flowers. The flowers with this set were really busy and were going to be too much on the background. And when I went through my stamps, surprisingly, what I found for a circle was an alphabet stamp. So I'm using the O out of an alphabet, and it has kind of a wide edge on one side and a narrow edge on the other, and it works really well. For the leaves, I'm using some Pear Pizzazz cards ink. It's a little dark, so I'm going to experiment here and try stamping off. The stamping off, though, is just too light, so I'm just going to use the Pear Pizzazz as it is. I'm putting two of these designs up in the upper left-hand corner of my cardstock, and that is going to fit in really well. I ended up rounding the corners again for the softening sake. Down in the lower right-hand corner, I'm going to be adding two leaf designs and considering some more leaves to spread this out a little bit and add a little more weight to that lower right corner. And I've got them going off the page a little bit there, so that the ones in the corner are the larger ones. And now it's time to paint them, and what I'm using to paint them is mist. This is tattered ink. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot. Before I mist, I've got to do one more thing. I've got to do my little circles. So I have some blue ink from Stampin' Up. This is Bashful Blue. I'm just going to add my little circles, and I didn't think about it at the time until I got the thing completely done. I probably should have turned them all the same direction so that the heavy side would be like a shadow, but I didn't think about that. That's why I don't do a lot of coloring. I don't think about those kinds of things. Anyway, so now I have my little blue flower buds or whatever they're supposed to be, and I've got some Tattered Angels Mist in Glacier Blue. These are old. I don't know if they still even make these colors. And the green one is so old the bottle broke, and I've got, or the mister broke, so I've got it in a separate bottle. It's called Sweet Clover, and I'm just going to paint this onto the leaves. And I found this worked really, really well. Because I'm adding a lot of water here, it will make the paper warp slightly. This is a very good quality cardstock, which you would want to use to keep from having too much warping, and it was barely noticeable. I'm not even sure I really paid much attention to it at all once I got to the thing completely done. But you are adding some water to cardstock, so you might have a little bit of that. I'm also adding water to a water-based outline, because the green ink was dye-based. It's Stampin' Up! Classic, and if it gets wet, it's going to run a little bit. That didn't bother me. It just softened the edges of the leaves, and you'll see them, they start to get a little bit thicker as the water sinks into them, because these mists, of course, have a lot of water in them. They also have some shine to them, and what I loved about it was it created kind of its own tone-on-tone effect without really having to do very much. And just made a really pretty finish. Okay, And once I get the green done, then I'm going to go in with the blue using that Glacier Blue. I've had this a really long time and there's very little left, so there's a lot of sparkly part left of this. Probably I didn't shake it up enough at some of its previous applications. Sorry about my head there. But it's pretty. It adds a nice dimension to these little flowers. Right, and those are all done and dried, and I've attached my photos down, and you can kind of see the sparkly part of the mist there. Now it's time to look at doing the washi tapes, and I wanted to show you something I had in mind for a little bit of embellishment where I had a little extra space there under the journaling. The Cricut, I had a design that looked like those leaves, so I cut it out, and I'm either going to use a button or ribbon with it, and I like the design, it's just not really the right color. So I'm probably going to recut it in a color that's closer to what the background turned out to be. And here are my washi tapes, and I'm deciding which ones I want to use. This blue and green I thought would have been the obvious one, but it ended up being a bit dark, and that blue one there was too blue-green. So I ended up using the three colors, blue, green, and yellow. I have a terrible time getting washi tape straight. And so I'm actually going to use a ruler to line it up. Now you don't have to do this for every piece. Once you get one piece lined up, then you can just use it as a guide for the rest of the pieces. And of course you can lay them down and take them back up, but I decided to use a ruler. And I'm using my lettering to kind of give me an idea of where I want to start my washi tape. Getting that on straight, and then the lines, the little dot lines on it will be easy to use as a guide for the other colors. And they go along the side as well, and again I'm using the ruler just to get the first row lined up. And actually once I get started on it I realize that I can kind of use the pictures as a guide too, to see where it needs to go, because it needs to be even with the side of the pictures. And I want it to overlap the other pieces of washi so they connect down there at the bottom. Doing the same color order, blue, green, and yellow. And that seems a tiny bit heavy. I end up taking a little bit of that yellow off. And the only thing that bothers me is they don't connect quite enough, so I'm going to fix that here in a few moments. These are my lettering. It's going to say finally spring. Like a lot of the country, it's been a dreary winter. We didn't have a lot of snow, but it's just been cold and rainy and messy. And the first week of April was all pretty and sunny, and we finally got out and felt like spring had arrived. So that's kind of how things look, except again I have that little space down there and I'm just not happy with it. So what I'm going to do to fix that is just move the washi tape, just move that yellow piece over. And that's what's nice about washi tape. Most of the time you can pull it up cleanly. You do have to be careful. Occasionally there'll be a paper, especially a real shiny paper, that it just really sticks to. And I found some of the glossy photo paper, the cheaper paper, it really sticks to. So, and I have one sticker I'm going to put up here for the date to cover up a couple of unsightly things in the photo. And here's my finished page. I recut my design from the Cricut, and I cut it smaller. That also helped, cut it smaller and use that paper that matched the what color the background leaves came out, and used 3 buttons instead of 2. So it matches the 3 designs on the side, or on the end corners. And on the sketch, I've got my washi tapes. I ended up putting just a little bit more washi tape to kind of bridge the gap there beside of the word finally. I've used only 2 little embellishments instead of 3 because I thought that fit better. There was enough going on the page. So thank you for watching today.